I knew Karen was going to be a problem the second she got elected HOA president. She wasn't just strict. She wasn't just obsessed with control. She was hungry for power. And my car, sitting peacefully in my own driveway, had just become her latest fixation. The first time she left a letter taped to my windshield, I laughed. Unregistered vehicles cannot be left unattended in driveways overnight. Cute. Except my car was registered. It was mine. And HOA guidelines didn't apply to my property. But Karen wasn't backing down. The second letter was more aggressive. The third, even worse. And then, one morning, I stepped outside to find a tow truck backing into my driveway. Karen stood beside it, arms crossed, smiling like she'd just won. I exhaled slowly, clutching my coffee tighter. She thought she had me. She had no idea I was about to turn this entire situation against her. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday. The sun was barely up, and I was already sipping my coffee, basking in the peace of my quiet suburban neighborhood. That is, until I heard the rev of an engine. Looking out my front window, I saw a woman in a bright green tracksuit standing on my driveway, yelling into her phone. A tow truck idled nearby, its driver looking lost. The first thought that ran through my head was pure disbelief. My 1972 Chevy, my pride and joy, the car I had poured my heart and soul into restoring, was about to be towed. It sat, neatly parked in my driveway, my private property, mind you. Yet this woman, this Karen, who had only recently been elected to the HOA board, was standing there, smirking as if she owned the place. I stormed outside, furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I barked at her. She turned slowly, smirking like she had already won. "Oh, there you are," she said, feigning surprise. "This car is parked illegally and I'm having it removed." My blood boiled. "This is my driveway, and that's my car," I shouted, motioning to the vehicle that was clearly parked within my own property. Karen rolled her eyes as if I were a child. "This is a shared driveway," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "And your car is in violation of HOA regulations. We're trying to maintain a respectable community." I shook my head, seething. "This is private property. The HOA doesn't have jurisdiction here. Now leave." Her smirk deepened, her voice dripping with condescension. "Oh, I can," she said, arms folded. "And I will." Just then, I spotted the tow truck driver looking uncomfortable. I walked over to him. The next morning, I woke up expecting the usual quiet suburban life, a cup of coffee on my porch, and the peaceful hum of nature. But peace was a fleeting thing, and as soon as I stepped outside, I noticed something new. A piece of paper was taped to my front door. My stomach twisted, a gut feeling telling me this wasn't going to be good news. I peeled the paper off and scanned the letter. My hands tightened as I read, "This is your last warning to remove the unapproved vehicle from your driveway. Failure to comply will result in further action being taken." It wasn't signed. No contact information, just the HOA logo stamped at the top, mocking me with its blankness. I could feel the blood rush to my face as anger simmered beneath my skin. The audacity of Karen, who had no jurisdiction over my property, sending me an official warning was almost laughable, but the sheer gall of it made my skin crawl. I knew I needed evidence, so I decided to install a security camera. There was no way I was going to let her sabotage me any further without proof. I set up the camera discreetly on the edge of the garage, making sure it had a clear view of the driveway, and I connected it to my phone so I could keep an eye on things from the comfort of my living room. I leaned closer, my pulse quickening as she reached down, grabbed one of my tomatoes, and slipped it into her bag. My heart dropped. There it was, clear as day. Karen, the HOA president, stealing from my garden. The same woman who had been making a nuisance of herself over my driveway was now pilfering from my vegetables. I replayed the footage again, this time feeling a rush of adrenaline. The smug satisfaction she had on her face when she picked my tomato was almost too much to bear. She had no right to take anything from me, let alone my hard-earned produce. The last few weeks of her harassment had already pushed me to the edge, but this was the breaking point. I slammed my phone down, fuming. I wasn't going to let this slide. This wasn't just about my car or my tomatoes anymore. This was personal. It didn't take long for Karen to show up again. By the afternoon, I spotted her across the street, standing on the sidewalk, her eyes fixed on my driveway like a predator waiting for prey. She had her arms crossed and was looking at my house with that smug, self-righteous expression that made my blood boil. It was clear. She had nothing better to do than stalk me and my property. I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The thought of her standing there, thinking she could control my life and my space, pushed me over the edge. I grabbed my phone, stepped outside, and walked right across the street. The heat of the sun wasn't as intense as the fire in my chest. "Karen!" I called out, my voice sharp and firm. She turned toward me instantly, her face flickering with that too familiar, insufferable grin. "Well, well," she drawled, her voice dripping with disdain. "If it isn't the homeowner who thinks the rules don't apply to him. Tell me, do you just live to break every rule in the book?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm, but inside, I was seething. "You've crossed a line, Karen," I said, my voice low but with a bite in it. "First, you tried to tow my car illegally. Then, you sent me bogus violation notices every other week. And now, I find out you've been stealing from my garden?" I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone, showing her the video footage. "Don't play dumb, Karen," I snapped, my voice hard and unyielding. "I've got you on camera, stealing my tomatoes. This isn't just about the car or the garden anymore. This is harassment, plain and simple, and I'm done letting you get away with it." Her face tightened, and for a moment, I could see the smallest crack in her facade. But it didn't last. She took a step forward, her eyes narrowing with fury. "You think this is some kind of joke, huh? You think you can stand up to me?" Her voice was venomous now, each word dripping with venom. "I'm the HOA president. I hold the power here. I can make your life a living hell." "Don't walk away, Karen," I called after her, my voice now even colder. "We're just getting started." She stopped, her back still turned to me, and I could see her fists clenching at her sides. "You have no idea what you're messing with," she muttered under her breath, but she didn't turn back. I watched her storm off, my heart pounding in my chest. She could walk away for now, but she had no idea what was coming for her. That night, I made my move. I wasn't about to let Karen ruin my life without some kind of payback. I went to the local hardware store and bought something that would make my revenge sweet and fiery. Carolina Reapers. The hottest peppers in the world. I spent the next few hours carefully planting them in my garden, making sure they were well hidden among my tomatoes. I knew Karen wouldn't be able to resist. I imagined her smug face as she plucked a pepper, thinking it was just another tomato, only to find out exactly how much she had underestimated me. It felt good to be the one in control for once. "Not so smug now, are you?" I muttered to myself as I watched her stumble around like a wild animal. She was literally running around the yard, knocking over plants in a desperate attempt to calm the fire burning inside her. I could hear her shrieking, but I didn't care. This was payback, and it was beautiful. She finally ran off, clutching her mouth, and I collapsed onto the couch, laughing uncontrollably. I had won. The next few days felt like a standoff. I had gotten my revenge, but something told me Karen wouldn't just roll over and take it. She wasn't the type to back down, especially after being humiliated like that. And sure enough, she wasn't done. The morning after her fiery encounter in my garden, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. It was a notification from my security camera. My stomach flipped as I unlocked the phone, holding my breath as I opened the footage. "Karen," I called, my voice cold, sharp. She froze, her smug smile slipping for a moment before it quickly reappeared. "Well, well," she said, raising an eyebrow. "If it isn't Mr. Carter, still clinging to his outdated junkyard of a car." I clenched my fists. "You're still at it, aren't you?" I shot back. "First, you try to tow my car illegally, then you steal from my garden, and now You're standing here, watching it like some kind of crazed stalker. What is it this time? She scoffed, stepping forward, her hands on her hips. It's not about your car or your stupid tomatoes, Michael. It's about respect. This neighborhood has standards, and you've been flaunting those standards for too long. Standards? I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Karen, this is my property. I can do whatever I want here, and I'm done letting you try to control me. You think you can stand up to me, huh? You think you can just ignore the rules and act like you're above them? You're not. She pointed at my car, her finger shaking in fury. That car is a blight on this neighborhood, and if you keep defying me, there will be consequences. I won't stop until I make sure you understand that. I felt a surge of anger and adrenaline rush through me. Is that a threat, Karen? I asked, my voice ice cold. She smirked. Maybe it is. Maybe it's time someone put you in your place. I didn't waste any time. I immediately called my lawyer and told him to prepare a formal response to Karen's harassment. I could already imagine the look on her face when she received a letter from my lawyer, putting an end to her pathetic power trip. But as I waited for the legal documents to come together, something else stirred inside me, something bigger than a simple response. I needed to expose her. I needed to make her realize that she wasn't just an overbearing neighbor with too much time on her hands. No, she was a tyrant, a bully abusing her position in the HOA, and she needed to be stopped. That's when inspiration struck. I couldn't just respond to her nonsense. I needed to destroy it completely. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. What better way to expose Karen's blatant misuse of power than by using her own game against her? If she wanted to control me, to dictate my life, to make my existence miserable, then I would take every single thing she loved about this perfect neighborhood and turn it into her worst nightmare. I started putting my plan together methodically and with an eye for every detail. First, I would dig into the HOA's policies, every little regulation she loved to throw in people's faces. But I wouldn't stop there. No, Karen needed to be humiliated. She needed to know she wasn't some untouchable queen. She was just another petty person using her position to make everyone else's life miserable. I spent hours poring over every piece of information I could find. I learned her schedule, her favorite haunts in the neighborhood, every detail of her authority that she flaunted like it made her better than everyone else. And with that, the pieces fell into place. I'd make sure she was exposed for the fraud she was, and she'd never walk into another HOA meeting with that smug grin again. The first move was easy enough, getting some of the neighbors on my side. I knew Karen had stepped on a lot of toes over the years, but many of them were too afraid to speak up. Not anymore. Karen, I called, my voice cutting through the silence. She turned, a fake sweetness plastered across her face. Well, well, look who decided to show up, she sneered, her arms crossed as if she was the one who was in control here. Still think you can break the rules without consequences? I didn't flinch. You're the one who's been breaking the rules, Karen, I shot back, taking a step closer. You think you can make everyone around here miserable just because you're the HOA president? Not anymore. I've had enough of you. Later that afternoon, I was outside doing some routine work on the car. I wasn't planning on anything dramatic. I just wanted to keep my mind occupied. But as I worked, I saw Karen approaching again, this time with a clipboard in hand. She had the look of someone who thought they had already won, someone who believed they could push me around without consequences. This time, I wasn't going to let her have the upper hand. She started her usual rant about how my car was a distraction and how unacceptable it was for the neighborhood. I stood there listening to her with a tight smile, fighting to keep my temper in check. I'm tired of you treating me like I don't know my rights, I said, cutting her off. This is my property. If you want to play games, fine, but you'll have to get through me first. Her eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You'll regret this, Michael. I promise you. You will. Go ahead, I shot back, voice low and full of resolve. Try me. I included the evidence, the footage of her harassment, the fake violations she'd created, and the public humiliation she had inflicted. And, just to add the final touch, I included a note from my lawyer, telling the HOA that if they continued to allow her to operate outside the law, I'd take legal action. The mail was sent that afternoon, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. This wasn't just a game anymore. This was war, and I was ready for it. A few days later, I received the news that my legal complaint had been accepted. The HOA had finally acknowledged Karen's relentless harassment and agreed to conduct a full investigation into her actions. I could hardly believe it. After everything, after all the stress, the anxiety, the constant barrage of her petty tactics, it seemed like the tables were finally turning. The weight that had been pressing on me for so long began to lift, and with that relief came a rush of satisfaction. The moment I'd been waiting for had arrived. That evening, as I stood in my living room enjoying the calm before the storm, I saw her. Karen stormed across the street, her face flushed with rage, her fists clenched at her sides like a cartoon villain about to explode. I could see her coming from a mile away. There was no mistaking the fury in her stride. "This isn't over, Michael," she screamed as soon as she was close enough, her voice a shrill screech. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face red as if she had been holding all her venom in just for this moment. I stepped outside, an amused smile curling on my lips. "Oh, it's over, Karen," I said, my arms crossed calmly as I leaned against the porch railing. I was finally done being afraid of her, finally done being on the defensive. "The HOA has been notified. You've been reported. Your little reign of terror is over." Karen's eyes narrowed, and she took a threatening step toward me, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you've won?" she spat. "You think this is some kind of victory? This is nothing. You don't even know who you're messing with. You think I'll just let this go?" I didn't budge. "You're done, Karen," I said, the words coming out with the weight of finality. "You've made everyone's lives a living hell for long enough. The HOA will see to it that you pay for everything you've done. I'm done letting you push me around, and so is everyone else." She opened her mouth to retaliate, to spew out more threats, but I raised my hand to silence her. "I don't need to hear any more of your empty threats," I said, my voice steady, not a hint of hesitation in my words. "It's over, Karen. You're done." Her face twisted in frustration, her anger boiling over, but she couldn't do anything. The damage was already done. She had crossed a line, and now the world was finally seeing her for what she truly was. A petty, small-minded bully. The moment she realized she had lost was so painfully obvious. It was like watching a house of cards topple, one angry word at a time. Karen threw one last look of fury at me, but there was no fire behind her eyes anymore. She was defeated. With one last seething glare, she turned on her heel and stomped back across the street, her footsteps heavy with rage and defeat. I stood there for a moment, the satisfaction of victory washing over me in waves. The fight, the constant stress, it was all over now. I had done it. I had stood my ground, and now Karen was the one who had to face the consequences. The weight on my shoulders lifted completely as I turned back toward the house. I had won. Not just for me, but for everyone she had tried to control, for everyone she had tried to intimidate. The neighborhood would be free of her tyranny, and I could finally breathe easy again. The battle was over, and I was the one standing victorious. After Karen stormed off that afternoon, I could feel the air thicken with anticipation. I had pushed her to the edge, and now the whole thing was coming to a head. She thought she could bully me into submission, but I wasn't backing down. The next few days were a blur of tension and sleepless nights, waiting for her next move. And I didn't have to wait long. It was a bright, quiet morning when the sound of a tow truck rumbled outside my window. My heart skipped a beat as I saw a familiar, annoying sight. A tow truck with its cables already hooked up to my beloved 1972 Chevy Chevelle. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shouted, my voice dripping with disdain. Karen raised an eyebrow and almost looked surprised to see me standing there. "Oh, I was just trying to help you out," she said sweetly, but I could see that sick satisfaction lurking behind her eyes. "You really should have moved your car already. The HOA said—" "The HOA doesn't own my property," I snapped, stepping closer, my blood boiling. "You have no right to come here and try to remove my car. You're wasting your time, Karen." Her smirk didn't falter. "Actually, Michael, I think it's you who's wasting your time. You should just listen to the community for once. The rules are there for a reason." I stepped in between her and the tow truck driver. "You don't get to make the rules here, Karen. And if you think I'm going to let you tow my car again, you've got another thing coming." Her expression soured, and I could see the anger start to bubble up behind her eyes. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" "No," I shot back. "I'm done letting you push me around. If you try to tow my car again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Now get off my property." She stared at me, her face turning red with frustration. "You'll regret this, Michael. I'll make sure of it," she hissed. I didn't flinch. "Try me." Karen stepped closer to the garden, her eyes narrowing as she took in my wild patch of peppers. Then, with a look of arrogance, she reached for one of the ripe-looking tomatoes and popped it into her mouth. I couldn't contain myself. The anticipation was too much. My revenge had already begun, and the sweet, poetic justice was unfolding right before my eyes. Karen's face twisted in shock as the intense heat hit her. Her eyes bulged wide, and she clutched at her throat, her mouth gaping open as she gasped for air. "What? What is this?" she cried out, her voice breaking into a shriek. I watched her, both in amusement and a flicker of guilt. But mostly, I was satisfied. I'd waited so long for this moment, and now the tables were turned. She stumbled backward, frantically trying to find water, her entire face turning beet red. "I knew you were trouble," I muttered under my breath as she flailed, knocking over a pot, her face flushed with tears. But the satisfaction in her misery made the whole thing worth it. As Karen scrambled, I pulled out my phone. I couldn't resist recording it. This was the final act. This was my victory.